Greetings and salutations. I hope everyone is doing well and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links and a quick reminder. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nutt only. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Also, it is Saturday, and that only means one thing. Saturday Nightmares, live from upstate New York. That is our live stream. It starts at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There is experiences and theories shared there. It is a lot of fun. Also, it is unlike any other live stream in the cryptid and paranormal community. I can guarantee you that much. The community chat is second to none. Friendships are forged, respect is given. It is truly an awesome, awesome community chat, and the live streams really are amazing because of you guys. So once again, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you all there. All right, folks, this experience that I'm going to share with you right now took 3 days worth of phone calls, about an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours each call, to get all of the details and all the information for him to kind of feel me out and see if he was willing to share the whole experience or any pieces of it. And I'm glad that he did. He and his friends that had the encounter will remain anonymous. We refer to them when talking about them as A, B, C, D, E, F. I didn't want to put too much effort into fake names, and because this experience is just too much as it is. Jeff, I found your channel about a month ago, and I've listened to a lot of your content. The video that YouTube recommended was The Eye of Canada, Dumbs/Dogman and Giants. I was hooked and found my family. I've commented many times, and a lot of people seem amazing and welcoming. My experience is similar to many of the experiences shared with giants or Nephilim creatures. I had to spend some time in BHU, honestly. I thought of leaving this plane of existence, the S word. It all started in the fall of 2019, end of September, early October. Myself and 5 friends went out to Fergus County, Montana for a hiking trip. We wanted to hike south and north Moccasin Mountains, the high peaks. We were staying in a lodge in Lewiston, Montana. Weather was amazing, high 70s, 60s. Night was a little chilly. Our group consisted of 4 males, 2 females, all of us avid hikers, 3 of us being very good hikers, meaning rock and ice climbing skills, etc. The day all of our lives changed started out amazing. It was a cool fall. Air was crisp. We drove out to South Moccasin Mountain fairly early, 10ish in the morning, via US 191. And from some rural roads till we got to an old fire road on the mountain. We parked. It was a bit before noon. We started hiking northwest. It was a fairly moderate hike. We were about an hour and a half into the hike and decided to take a break, sit down and eat some snacks, drink some water, take some photos. We knew there was about 15 to 20 minutes from where we were a gorge. 3 of us went up. The 3 friends that stayed behind, they weren't into the high intense hiking. So myself, C, and my 2 friends A and B went, as the others D, E, F stayed back. So ABC got to this gorge area and proceeded to look around, going in and out of these caves, crevices, and ravine areas. We were doing this for maybe 30 minutes. It was pretty fun, enjoyable. We were laughing and yelling at each other, acting like big kids, just having a blast. At some point, we realized that there was no noise, nothing but an eerie silence. We all noticed how creepy it was. Jeff, us 3 have been in the woods in all 4 seasons. This was like nothing I or we ever experienced. It felt just wrong. We climbed out of the gorge area. Just a slight breeze snapped this smell. I know people say piss and shit, wet animal, etc. No. This was a smell so bad it brought gagging senses. Maybe dirty, musky, rotten meat. I don't know. It was something I still remember and have nothing to compare it to. So, kind of off script, I want to describe a little bit of where they were. South Moccasin Mountain is not very large, but it's an isolated kind of small mountain range. And where they were having this kind of teenage fun, but they are not teenagers at this time. They're older, in their late 20s at the time. And they were 15 to 20 minutes from their friends, and they had left their packs back with their friends so they could get to this gorge faster than like all trails, states, and stuff like that. And they just really wanted to have some fun with each other. These 6 people all grew up together. They're all from Massachusetts and all have hiked the Appalachia Trail. Actually, the 3 that were doing this kind of gorge jumping and playing, those 3 together did the whole trail from Maine to the end. And it was about, I think he said like 200 and something days. They did stop quite a bit and stuff, but they made some great time, I guess. When they got out of this gorge and they had first noticed how silent it was, because they're being loud, they're yelling. There's an echo in the kind of caves that they're in, and it's not deep caves. It's just like maybe 5-6 feet deep. They're jumped back out, acting like teenagers, just having fun. For some reason, all 3 of them noticed how dead silent it was. It wasn't even, the wind wasn't even blowing. He had said that maybe where they were had cut the wind off so they couldn't hear it, because they did have to climb out of this kind of little gorge. It was about 15 to 20 feet deep, so they just didn't jump in. They
climbed in, climbed out. And when they got to flat ground, or lack of there, but when they got back up out of the gorge, and it was just this eerie, sickening silence, he said. And then the smell hit them, and it was almost gagging. Like he said, I almost threw up, and I can't explain the smell. He said, when I first started looking into experiences and such back in 2020, I had heard a lot of people describe, wet dog, wet animal, urine, feces, vomit. But he said it wasn't even close to that. He said that he is, in his life, smelled some pretty rancid things, hiking on trails and stuff, coming across dead animals that have been dead for, days, weeks and such. That it was a musky, kind of like a rotten, if a person hadn't showered for like a month, but sweat and ran, occasionally bathed in a dirty stream, maybe urinated on themselves and had fecal matter on them. Just a really unusually strange and sickening smell. So now that's what they are forced to deal with. They know that their friends, their 3 friends, are 20 minutes away, jogging, walking about 35. At this point, we were all standing there silently looking around, and we heard this strange kind of grunt, similar to that of someone clearing their throat, and maybe a large cat, like a lion or tiger, roar. We looked at each other and quietly went toward the opposite side of the gorge area. I thought I had heard walking, like debris breaking, and stopped. A and B went ahead. I watched them. I thought I saw what looked to be a large head, I believe, and I yelled out, "Come back, let's get out of here, guys." I heard a rock slide after. I couldn't see my friends from the vantage point that I was at. And that's when I heard the slide and a scream. It was like shale breaking. I ran over and looked over the edge of the gorge area. This was a deeper part of the gorge, maybe 30 feet. I saw this creature. It was at least 13 to 15 feet in height. Blood was on A and B at this time. Looked like he was still alive, but barely. As this giant creature seemed to be dragging them with no issue into the cavern. A was being dragged by his foot, and B was being dragged by his head. B did not seem to be moving or doing anything, while A occasionally moved. It may have been either twitching or just from the dragging. This creature was huge, Jeff. It wasn't a Bigfoot, nor a Dogman. Yet it was human-shaped, just much larger, easily double my height, and I'm 6'1". Its head was huge, similar to a human, but if this makes sense, animalistic. It appeared to be wearing some sort of shorts or loincloth, and maybe a shirt. I don't know. It could have been fur or hair. I'm not sure. So when he described it, he said like a Native American loincloth, and it appeared to have a shirt, but it could have been fur or hair. He noticed that its face was not hairy, its arms were not hairy. It had a kind of dirtyish complexion, like it hadn't seen water in years, and it was just, dirt, mud, dust. But he did see that it was wearing some kind of cloth, maybe animal skin, covering its genital area and down to its knees. But the shirt, it could have been its chest hair or whatnot. He does not have a clear memory of that. He just remembers seeing its bottom half, because when he watched this creature dragging his friends, you're watching your two best friends get dragged, one by his head, and another by his arm. And seconds earlier, you guys hear this noise and they run because their adrenaline's still pumped. They're still in that playful mode, that just teenage angst. But, when you're older and you get that adrenaline and you're with your friends and you're just full of energy and joy, away from work, away from family and responsibility. So seconds later, now he's looking down and he sees his friends being dragged by this unnatural creature, this just vile looking monster. I ran the 20-something minutes back to where my other friends were in our group. They were relaxing, not aware of anything that happened. I'm running in, yelling and freaking out. They are looking at me confused. I ran into the clearing, out of breath. People are yelling now, asking questions. We, A, B, C, left our packs with the group for speed and easier travel. I knew that B had an emergency sat phone in his pack, and I contacted the local sheriff's department. Everyone was in shock at what I was saying. Our friends had a look of terror and disbelief as I'm talking to a deputy or dispatch asking where we were. Eventually, I was given GPS coordinates to get to with our vehicle to meet sheriff deputies via truck and helicopter. And apparently, many of the county sheriff departments out west in Montana and such do have helicopters for faster, easier travel, and the distance being so, like, Ferguson County is huge. There's very little populace, but it's huge. So to have a couple of deputies and trucks take an hour, 45 minutes to get somewhere, you can do that in half the time with a helicopter. We proceed south down this dirt fire road to the large opening. The helicopter is there about 15 minutes after we arrive. Maybe 25 to 30 minutes, 2 sheriff deputy trucks arrive. We are questioned and filling in all details about what occurred. My 3 friends and I are separated. I am separated from them. They are told to accompany the 2 sheriffs in the truck back to the station in Lewistown, Montana. I am told that we are going into the helicopter and we are going to find the area where I last saw my friends. Maybe 15 minutes into the air, and we are almost to where this happened. I've never been in a helicopter, so I'm scared more so than I was, and amazed at how quick we got to the location. A 40-minute run, a 30-minute drive compared to a 20 minutes. We are over the location where I last saw my friends alive. This deformed giant creature, when we go over this thing, is out of the cave area. It appears to be staring up at us and quickly jumps down and goes into the cave. The pilot and deputy both have a unison. WTF is that thing? For some reason, my two best friends, A and B, are now lying out in the sun, splayed open and nude. Like this thing is dehydrating and tanning them. I break down immediately. Now, this is important that I mention this, because when he said deformed, he didn't mean body-wise. The thing that struck him the strangest, and still does to this day, is when we think about a giant or a Nephilim, or the Kandahar giant, even in thumbnails of videos and such, it's this just big human-like, muscular, bearded creature, very human looking. This, he said, looked like it was a product of years of interbreeding. It did have hair on its face, but it patchy, and long in places, short in others. Same as its body hair. Not a lot of body hair, but patches of it. And its head was not ovular like a human head, or roundish, nor conical like a Bigfoot. Its head seemed to be like a misshapen boulder. It was just this lumpy kind of, he said, imagine Sloth but cleaned up from Goonies. It was the ugliest, strangest looking thing. And when he, still to this day, hears people talk about Nephilim and sees pictures, in books and whatnot, that they are depicted as human-like. And for what he saw, that was furthest from the truth. Yes, it was human in appearance to a mild extent, but like he said, it looked like it was years of just interbreeding created this vile creature. From that point, we have about a 40-minute flight back to the sheriff's station. 40 minutes later, the sheriff is filled in, and I am separated still from my friends. I overhear a deputy stating that the sheriff is on the horn with the Department of Homeland Security out of Kalispell, Montana. From that point, for some reason, we are all separately brought to Malmstrom Air Force Base and questioned by whom I believe to be the Department of Homeland Security. I'm told my three friends were returned to the lodge and told they are to fly back to Massachusetts, which is where we are all from, and that the government or Department of Homeland Security handle everything transportation and my transport, and the recovery and transportation of the bodies. I am now being harassed by this man who is definitely the atypical man in black for 2 days off and on. He's tall, pale, in a suit, G-man. I was asked what I saw, what I told my friends, and extensively and repeatedly asked what I told my friends. I repeated exactly what I said to the deputies, which this man played back my call. I was told that a team is out now recovering the bodies. The man, agent, I don't know, said to me, if anyone in his team is hurt or killed, that I possibly could be facing charges and could be jailed or possibly go to prison. For whatever reason, I know now it was intimidation. 2 days of hell. I'm told by this very tall, pale G-man, When I say tall, like I said, I am 6'1". This guy was easily 6'5" and maybe 150 pounds. Just weird. My friends' bodies had been recovered, and I would be escorted to the airport, put on a plane. My stuff at the lodge was packed. My friends DEF were told that they were attacked by a bear. I was placed on a psych hold before I left. And that is what my friends were told as well. I was being escorted. I was placed on a psych hold. My friends were told that I was placed on a psych hold for my statements, and I also was. But my friends at that point thought that I was going crazy. As I was being escorted out by 2 military police, or whatever you want to call them, the freak, the G-man, looked at me and said, "Remember, son, it was a bear attack, a grizzly bear. And it is what it says on the autopsy and looks visually." He lowered his glasses and said, "No one will believe you if you say any different. The bodies already look like they had been mauled by a grizzly bear." His eyes turned into what appeared to be snake-like eyes, and in a second's time turned back to human. The plane ride, I thought about this and decided to avoid everyone after my friend's burial services. So what happened was, when they were separated, he later found out that he was kept separate from his 3 other friends. There was a period of time when they were separated, but not very long, maybe a couple of hours, if that. And they were told that he must have, after witnessing this bear attack, had a mental breakdown. And that is what, his brain told him that he saw was this deformed giant creature maul his friends. And yet it was a grizzly bear, which is not the truth. When he flew over with the deputy and pilot of the helicopter, who's probably a deputy as well, his friends were splayed open like fish, and they were laying in the sun. They were nude, and lying in the sun, like being dehydrated or dried out. But there were no gashes or slash marks. So apparently, during this, once they recovered the body, he doesn't know anything about what happened to this giant creature. He doesn't know if this team killed it or what. He's assuming that they did, just based on what the demeanor of this very strange, pale, tall freak was, who is Department of Homeland Security. And his friends were led to believe that he went crazy. So they're thinking, they're wondering why he's not on the plane with them as they're flying back to Massachusetts. They're now told that he's on a psych hold, yet he's being intimidated for a day, then put into a mental division on the base. He was never transported to a public hospital. He stayed there, and kept isolated, and was told, what you saw didn't happen. What you saw was a grizzly bear, yada, yada. Yet he knows what he saw. He remembers the sheriff pilot saying, "What the fuck?" and them veering off quickly. he remembers this thing jumping down off of this like edge and kind of going into its cave region, seeing his friends. It was not a bear. I have spoken to D, E, and F, as E and F are married. Once again, 2 female, 4 male. A, B, C, and D were A, B, C, and E were males, and F and D. There was 2 females, 4 males. D was dating A. Everyone really thinks a grizzly bear attacked my friends and killed them. I know what happened. The creature was not a grizzly. Honestly, I wish it was. 1 year after all of this occurred, I did try to leave this plane of existence. I was then brought to a hospital and put on a 72-hour psych hold, where I stayed later for another 30 days. I was placed on medicine because of everything that I've been through. I never shared anything about what I saw out in Montana. They just think my friends were killed by a grizzly bear in front of me. I have gone back there in 2022, in October, the date that I left. 3 years later, when the hike started, and placed a wooden cross with flowers as a memorial for my 2 best friends. Guys, there is shit out in these woods that is much scarier than a Dogman or Bigfoot. Hell, some of these things are in our government. So he and I talked, and there was a lot of kind of him getting to know me, because he was still at that point of, do I want to share any of this? He, at this point, cannot still to the day mentally hold a job for very long. He still lives out in Massachusetts and has a job that's maybe like 5 hours, 10 hours a week. He is on disability because of his mental illness, his mental issues now that he keeps having. That we're talking about a person that literally went hiking, mountain climbing, ice climbing, any kind of extreme outdoor hiking or climbing on his days off, but wore a suit and tie to work every day. And this experience had brought him from here way past, any kind of level he ever thought he would be at. He still contemplates the S word. And he is not afraid of the repercussions of sharing this experience. He specifically said I could use his name, but don't use my friends' names, because they have no involvement in him even. They don't even know he's even sharing. They don't really even talk. They all live their life thinking that their 2 best friends were attacked by a bear. Yet he saw this horrificness of it. He almost for 30 to 40 minutes, he talked about how this creature, when he's standing back, and he's like, he had seen this kind of like what he thought was a head, like maybe just the top part. And he said, guys, and then he hears like shale and slate kind of break, and his friend scream. He thought that they had fallen off this cliff, and yet when he looks up or looks over, he sees his one friend. He could tell that the one that was getting dragged by his arm was clearly dead, but the one that was being dragged by his head, and it was almost like this creature did grabbed his head and dragged him purposely to inflict some sort of pain. That's what he got from watching that happen. And I had told him about, he was freaked out a lot because of that. Remember, son, no one will believe you anyway, and kind of did that number and put his glasses back up. And he watched this person's eyes go from almost a black color to a snake kind of eyeball. He said that it appeared that his eyes, this man in black, Department of Homeland Security, had black eyes. It could have been just the light. He did say that it could have been the light, but when they switched from whatever they were prior to that reptilian-like snake eye, that was not the light. That was the real deal. Because he looked at the other, the two military police that were escorting him, and they weren't looking at the guy. They didn't acknowledge him. When he was addressed, they were facing away. So, and I did tell him, I said, that's really, really strange, because I had an experience that there was a group of Boy Scouts at a cemetery. And this one Boy Scout the reason why they were at this old cemetery was because he was going for his Eagle Scout and had to do like a civic project, a project to, better his environment or whatever it was. And it's part of the curriculum or whatnot to be an Eagle Scout. They're out in these, rural area at a cemetery, cleaning it up, making it look beautiful. And they saw Dogman. And then after, when they are being interrogated by a government official, I don't know if it's Homeland Security that did these Boy Scouts or said this to the Boy Scouts, but the eyes did change into a reptilian eyeball. And crazy enough, when I interviewed a family friend of Corey Godsey's mom, a person that went to school with her, Corey Godsey, the 13-year-old little boy from Knott County, Kentucky, that I covered the day everything went down. It was disturbing. But he said that Department of Homeland Security was responsible for all of the cleanup and whatnot that happened in Knott County, Kentucky. So, I mean, when he was telling me all this, I'm putting pieces together in my head like, wait a second, Homeland Security. And I did. There is a Homeland Security office in Montana. I didn't know that, but there is. And like I said, the majority of the sheriff departments out there have a helicopter. It's just a lot of very crazy shit went down to this poor man. And I really do feel bad for him. And I said, listen, if you ever need to talk, or you just need to, have an ear to listen, I'm here, brother. I'm here. Or comment in the comment section, because he has commented and communicated with a few of you guys. But the brief time that he's been here, about a month and a half. So, just insane.
And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I hope to see you all at the live stream, once again, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone's simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.